All right, good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Hammer's Tribeca Trade Group with your end of day recap for Friday. So, I very rarely do an end of day recap for Friday, but what the hell? It was just such an awesome day today. It's funny because the S&P was only up 17 basis points today, but just again, a lot of sector movers, a lot of individual stocks, plenty of trade ideas to look at for the day. So, looking at this chart again, it's just crazy. Another just slow grind higher. I don't, you can't really ask for much more for a trader if you're trading single stocks and sectors because it's just been really good. The flow's been really good option wise. Every day you have your choice of what kind of trades you want to get into. If you're really detail oriented, getting into some things on a dip because it seems like we get this opportunity every day too, where some names that have seen option activity dip. So if you're patient and you don't chase and you just keep a nice like journal or notebook or watch list of names that go down that have seen option activity, you could really get into to some of these names cheaper. So let me just talk about, I guess, a couple trades of the day today. So what's funny is because I had Qualcomm on prior, and rules are rules. I do not hold option trades into earnings that are swing trades, so I take them off. I took off Qualcomm for a nice gainer. I think there was something that happened this week that kind of brought it down. I think maybe something with NXPI, but I got out of that trade and. Still always kind of keep an eye on this name. And, I had sent this out on Twitter. I said, even though I kind of get out of the trade, I think I got out of it here or maybe it did not. Did it not report earnings this week? I thought it was. There's so many names out of. Yeah, it reported earnings. I never hold option swing trades into earnings. That's gambling essentially. If you have a particular trade on that's you design it around the implied volatility and so forth, that's a different story. But I never hold these trades into earnings for options. Cash again is a whole nother thing. But I was looking at this, trying to, that Qualcomm was trying to get back over the 200-day moving average. So here's just a picture of what we were doing in the trading room. Right around 129, I actually showed, I had an alert set up. They said, "Wow, Qualcomm is looking like it's resuming coming out." And you know, then I actually put out the I put out the headline as soon as we got it. So I got this from Bloomberg, Broadcom to explore deal, and I just went ahead and went. You could see the chronological order here, and I got into this trade. I just grabbed this something. Whenever there's a deal like this and the price hasn't reacted, I just look for the first thing to basically buy, right? I mean, they're all going to go up if something is announced. It doesn't really matter. You can obviously get into a cheaper play on the weeklies, but if you go so I happen to have January, and when something like that hits the tape, because somebody asked me on Twitter, they said, "Why'd you pick January?" I said, "Because that was the first thing that was up, and the less clicks that you could do to get into the market, the better." So I had got into that trade for 90 cents before the stock even started to react. I mean, I think it maybe just was developing this first green bar on that move, and I got in at 90 cents and hit targets all the way up to 550. Was it either 550 or 650? I mean, just a home run, absolute home run on this. So that's what we do. We get the information over to our members quicker than anybody else does. And I didn't look, but I'm pretty sure I'm probably the first one to tweet about Qualcomm and Broadcom. I didn't see anybody doing that before we were. So we had the information first, gave it to members, and some of them acted on it. So I mean, an absolute blowout for this trade, and a nice surprise on Friday. I almost actually went out to went to pick my lunch up, and I said, "Oh, I'll wait a half hour." So sometimes you get a little bit lucky too. So so that's nice to talk about. Really, what was intriguing today was biotech. Real nice turn here. It was kind of this week was, I would say, frustrating for a lot of people who have traded this before. Excuse me. A lot of people who. Sorry, I was just reading something. I get distracted. Probably a pretty frustrating trade for people who are trading biotech this week, could try to go a couple times. I actually put this trend line where it was kind of stalling out every day, and then just being a little bit patient and not kind of giving up. Here, this is where we got to on Friday. We got there again Monday, Tuesday. I think that's Wednesday, somewhere and mixed in here. Maybe that's Monday. But it finally got going today and kind of hung in here, retested and kept going. So really nice for the biotechs. A lot of them, have been catching fire. But GBT, Global Blood Therapeutics, the way I explain this is we saw a couple weeks ago, probably about three weeks ago at this point, just a monster call buyer out to March. So if you looked at that trade and said, "Oh, geez, well, it's kind of wide," the options were wide. They were about I think it was $4 at $5. Now, first of all, it's marking at about $10. So it's marking at a double. But even if you didn't get into that March trade, today we saw, it's all about the repeat action. When somebody consistently goes after something over and over and over again, you're kind of foolish not to participate a little bit, even in something really speculative as this name. If they're doing that several times, and you had your chance today, we saw calls go up really aggressively, and the price didn't react right away. So it took a little while. I tweeted it out, and it just took a while for that to catch. So I think this was at the December 45 calls, and this, and I'll even show you. This was at, where's the timestamp on this? 10:17. I'm telling you, you had time right here. So and then it exploded from $39 up to 43. So again, I would classify this as a home run too. And it's a name that we've been talking about for weeks. This was actually, we have a trading contest that whoever wins gets a free month of Tribeca Trade Group, and I participate in it, and that was my pick for last month because of that option activity. So, I've been long this name, and it's really worked out. Just to kind of stick with the biotech theme, Gilead I think is a really good. As I told members today, I cannot take every biotech. I can't take every trade that hits the tape, especially when it's in the same sector. So if I'm long GBT, XBI, and I think maybe one or two other names on long, I really don't want to have that much more exposure. It's too much exposure. This happened. This happened to me months ago when we saw call buying in just about every semiconductor name, and at one point I was long 4 or 5 different semi names, and it's like, hey, wait a minute, you can't keep adding the same trade. God forbid we get a nasty market pullback. You're going to get smoked. So so I point these trades out as much as I can and say, hey, I would like this trade if I already wasn't loaded up to the max on biotech. That would be interesting. So that was another one. I mean, I could literally go through about 20 different names in here. ZIOP, which I would personally wait for repeat call activity because the chart is so bad. But PRTX is another name that I've never heard of before, so sometimes I wait for that repeat activity. More NRG, again, that's been another name that they just have been going after over and over and over again. Now post earnings, which is a good sign, right? You want to see after the information is out and people have had a chance to digest the earnings call and the information presented, somebody comes back in and tags the name again. And that's the same thing. I think IGT was another one that saw some call buying again. So really nice. This one hasn't moved that much, since it's took this big leg higher. I think this thing goes higher. I really do, the way that they've been going after it. But we'll see. We'll see if they continue to come in and buy it. So even after that news, when Qualcomm was announced, they actually were buying calls in it. Twitter saw some call buying. MT saw some call buying. DXJ, which I mentioned this morning. I think the Nikkei, I forget the exact day count, but like in the last 25 days, trading days has only been down once. And they come in like every other day and buy DXJ calls, which is Japan securities without the FX. So a couple other names, just to kind of just to give one more summary, like a lot of energy names going up too. So in big blocks. So what did I do? I sometimes I don't want single name exposure. I think SLB, which we saw some calls, is in a downtrend. IRRC, which we saw a big block. It's in a downtrend. I just don't want to really mess with things in a downtrend, so I picked something that's in an uptrend. So the whole XOP ETF is now above the 200-day moving average, and this is a pretty volatile ETF. It doesn't. It's sometimes some people think that that just because it's an ETF, it doesn't move that much. XOP moves. It's kind of like the biotech ETF XBI. So it does move around a little bit, and it's a little bit cheaper in terms of implied volatility to get into these names. So I decided to do that. I actually did this in two different places, cash and in options, and it's easy. Why I'm okay doing that and taking two positions, because I know exactly where to get out. I know exactly where this trade's not going to work. If it breaks on the 200-day moving average, out. But I do think it's interesting to see a nice day in oil, which I think finished up. Yeah, I mean, look at the move in oil today. So a little bit of digestion after this VPOC. So why not start looking at oil names? And I was looking at going long energy names all week long, and I had one excuse or another not to go in it. But hey, it's above the 200-day moving average, and it's an easy setup. I call them Tribeca Trade Group setups because they're so easy. They're so easy a caveman could do it. As long as you're disciplined, and if it doesn't work and you get out at that 200-day moving average, you've got a tiny loss on your hands. So it doesn't get much easier than that. You just have to be disciplined. All right. Have a great weekend, and thanks for watching the video.